Live from the heart of America, I'm Steve Gruber, your soldier of truth, the tip of the spear against all of those lies out there from socialists and liberals and all the rest. I'm here ready to fight for you from the foxhole of freedom. Remember to think while it's still legal, would you please? This is the Steve Gruber Show, and here are the three big things for this hour. Number one, Florida prepping for a hurricane strike on the Gulf Coast side. Looks like the storm Idalia will be getting stronger before making landfall sometime midday on Wednesday. We'll keep you updated. Number two, 99% of so-called COVID deaths are not caused primarily by the virus. In fact, the number is tiny. That, according to the CDC, but the push for vaccines and more ramping up all over again anyway. Number three, I am the problem. I am the problem. At least according to liberal and progressive doctrine, it's me. I am to blame for the problems of America, and frankly, all the problems the world has ever known can be laid directly at my feet. So say the enlightened ones. It's not because I make too much money or not enough. It's not because I take government handouts. Not because I'm addicted to drugs or have any violent tendencies. It's not because I smoke or anything else. It's all because of just one thing. I'm white. And therefore, according to Joe Biden and all the other far-left socialists running around in Washington, it's me, and anyone that looks like me, that is to blame for everything that has ever gone wrong. And unless my kind are kept in check, it will be the end of freedom, democracy, and, of course, America. None of that is true, of course, but that is the next big talking point, and we have heard this before lots of times, haven't we? But that doesn't make it any more true than it was back then. It's also a clear indication that the left keeps seeing polling numbers for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and realize that they are in very serious political peril. In fact, one might say it looks like the ship is sinking right alongside the feeble president's failing poll numbers. So, how desperate are the Democrats? Well, a shooting in Jacksonville has become just about the only thing they're talking about lately. They are shrill and screaming about white supremacy and how it is the biggest threat to the nation, and that it's far more pervasive and prevalent than anyone actually realizes. Of course, that's all false as well. It's been over 160 years now since Democrats got together to create this thing called the Ku Klux Klan. More than 100 years since the Klan reached its heyday during the administration of President Woodrow Wilson, a Democrat, and one of the most openly racist presidents of all time. In fact, he ranks right up there with the openly racist Lyndon Baines Johnson, another Democrat. But it was Wilson that screened the racist film Birth of a Nation at the White House itself. Make no mistake, Democrats don't care much about factual historical accounts of what their party really is and always has been. They don't want to talk about Democrat Governor George Wallace, another outspoken racist who ran for president on the idea of segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever. All to keep blacks and whites in America separate and keep the black population in its place. Of course, the Democrats now claim falsely, of course, that at some point the party switched. This is the dumbest thing. There's so many dumb things with the Democrats. This is one of the dumbest things. The party switched at some point, you see. Really? Does that mean Ronald Reagan was a Democrat? Richard Nixon, too? Was JFK actually a Republican? Of course, that premise is ludicrous, but it always has been Republicans that have led the charge to fight for equal rights for blacks and, frankly, all Americans in this nation. And everyone should know that by now. I mean, the party was created to end slavery. Which part did you miss in class on that one, lefties? How about a refresher course? Democrats wanted to keep black people enslaved so badly they caused a civil war that cost 600,000 Americans their lives. The North fought to end the practice and save the country. President Dwight David Eisenhower was the man that sent the National Guard to Little Rock to enforce the federal law of allowing black students into previously all-white schools. And Eisenhower was the president who signed the first major civil rights bill into law in 1957. He did so with the backing of Republican senators in large part, not Democrats. But history doesn't matter, and neither do facts in 2023 Democrat politics. But facts matter to me. How about some more facts that are a bit more recent? How about the fact that Martin Luther King Jr. was a Republican, by all accounts? And LBJ used language to describe black voters I can't even repeat here. And used those words as his impetus for signing the Civil Rights Act of 1965. It was not to help blacks, but to help Democrats get and keep power, like everything else they do. And, of course, Joe Biden is the man that attended the funeral of the former Grand Cyclops of the Klan, Senator Robert Byrd of West Virginia, and praised him. He was flanked by the likes of Hillary and Bill Clinton in that praise. And yes, Republicans have their share of racists too, but to hear the Democrats tell the story now, they are as pure as the driven snow, while their GOP counterparts are simply evil and a threat to the nation and the world. That whole theme was dragged out into the open again on Monday, and Joe Biden, who counted many segregationists among his close friends in Washington, worked to gaslight the world again. However, I can read, and I know who he is. I know that 2 million members of the Klan resided in Indiana in 1920, and they were almost all Democrats. Again, facts that are easy to verify. Another reason I keep World Book encyclopedias from years gone by. Those facts cannot be erased by the newspeak overlords of today. But Joe just blurts out what he's told to say anyway. You know that, of course. Propaganda and lies, that is all the left has. And one of the big talking points is white people are evil. Even if they aren't. Even white people, of course. They'll just call white supremacists anyway. Joe Biden just slobbers it out again. Listen.
To the point where the intelligence community is determined, the U.S. intelligence community is determined that domestic terrorism rooted in white supremacy is the greatest terrorist threat we face in the homeland. The greatest threat.
Yeah, the same intelligence community that they claimed concluded that Donald Trump colluded with Russia in 2016 to win the election. Yeah, those same intelligence communities. All lies. You see, Joe Biden convened a meeting with race hustlers like Al Sharpton and continued to gin up the propaganda on white supremacy being some existential threat to this country, which, of course, it's not. No more so than it was when Democrats created the Ku Klux Klan. We, of course, survived that when millions of Democrats were members, as I mentioned. We survived that. We will survive this when there's a few white supremacists and racists among us, because there are. Here's more from Joe.
And as I've said to the country, we can't let hate prevail. And it's on the rise. It's not diminishing. Silence, I believe, as we've all said many times, silence is complicity. We're not going to remain silent. And so we have to act against this hate-fueled violence, and you saw what's happening. By the way, almost 5 years to the day that 5 young blacks were killed in Jacksonville 5 years earlier at a gun shop, a store. They were doing kids' toys. But you know, and we have to speak out that there's a whole group of extreme people trying to erase history, trying to walk away from, the idea that we're
not trying to erase history, Joe. You should read some of your own. Read about the Ku Klux Klan, the Democrat Party, and all the things you did. What about your buddy? The Ku Klux Klan Grand Cyclops, who you went to his funeral and raved about how wonderful he was, Joe. Truth matters. We'll have more after this. By the way, I'm not the problem.